An IDF strike ends up hitting the Nasser hospital down inside Gaza. Hamas health ministry is claiming 15 or more have been killed. We got footage coming from that place, plus a statement by the IDF. And it also looks like Lavrov and Putin have zero, and I mean absolutely zero, like, reason to come to the negotiation table. Why? Because they don't think that Zelensky is a legitimate president for Ukraine. So where the hell is that going? Also, it looks like Israel is preparing to enter into Gaza City in an attempt to force a hostage release, but not without the complete and full surrender of Hamas. Ladies and gentlemen, stick around because today is going to be a great show. Also included in this is going to be IDF strikes down inside Yemen with footage of all sorts of crap exploding. In the meantime, enjoy some drunk Ukrainian guy as we wait on people to roll in here. Enjoy some drunk Ukrainian guy trying to, how do I want to say this, defuse a freaking Russian FPV drone? Dude, words cannot express what the heck that guy was thinking as he sat there in his drunken stupor playing with a freaking drone with explosives on it. But I mean, hey, at the Ukraine, right? Like, do what you got to do. Just make it however you want to be. Listen, IDF came out with a statement yesterday claiming that they struck multiple targets, all right, belonging to Houthi terrorists inside of Sana'a, Yemen, including a site in which the presidency palace is located. They also went after several power plants, which is absolutely freaking nuts. They said that they carried out those strikes in response to the ballistic missile threat and the constant firing of ballistic missiles by the Houthis over at Israel. They also said that they are backed by Iran, which in my opinion is kind of indicative of some of the things that we have to come. I've got some videos of these strikes taking place. I want to run you guys through what ended up happening over in Yemen. It didn't actually get a lot of coverage, but it is important to understand that Israel is still conducting these operations over against the Houthis down inside Yemen. And it's also notable that they think that Iran is behind all this crap.
لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله.
Like, do we think this is going to deter the Houthis at all from shooting ballistic missiles at Israel? No. Pink Mist doesn't begin to describe, but again, they said that they were going after those different power plants and several fuel storage depots of the Houthis. So yes, number one, this is going to affect a lot of the people. And when you look at it and you say, are these legitimate military targets? Yes, they are. This power is being used by the Yemeni forces, or the Houthis, if you will, or Ansar Allah, whatever, terrorist name that we choose to throw on them. They're all viable. But either way, is it a legitimate military target? Yes, absolutely. John Wilson says, I also read that thankfully no one was injured in that strike by Yemen on Israel. The article I read said the woman inside thankfully made it into her reinforced shelter. Thank God, man. Praise God for that. That's awesome. That's good news. Patrick Loudon coming in and giving out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Appreciate you, Pat. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, Houthis firing ballistic missiles at Israel, it's not going to go anywhere. And my big concern that I have right now with Gideon's Chariot about to take off is that Iran might very well step up and start attacking Israel again, not just via proxy forces, but using those ballistic missiles that they have. Now, Israel severely depleted their ballistic missile supply back in June when the U.S. and Israel started off with just Israel, ended up launching that air campaign against Iran. But Iran continues to supply the Houthis. Just a couple of weeks ago, I ended up showing you guys an article and a video that ended up coming out of, I believe it was Saudi officials that had gone over and actually intercepted a shipment from Iran that was on its way to the Houthis. Now, that's some serious crap. All right. If Iran is continuing to fund the Houthis, if they're continuing to supply ballistic missiles, Trump administration did say that they're going to hold them accountable for it. And we did go out there and, how do I want to say this, have an unsuccessful bombing campaign. There's no other way to describe it. The Houthis said that they were going to attack merchant vessels, but we know from the leaked signal gate messages that our goal in doing that wasn't just to protect U.S. ships. It was to actually reopen the Red Sea. And as the channel name suggests, Speak the Truth. Did the U.S. actually accomplish that objective? Did we reopen the Red Sea? No. If we go over and we take a look at the map and I show you all the merchant traffic, it's still going around. And the Houthis opened up last month, or was it earlier this month, and stated that they were going to attack every ship traversing the Red Sea. Incog Faraday coming in and gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships as well. Appreciate you, brother. You guys. Houthis are a serious problem. Iran's a serious problem, and they're sleeping. They're sleeping. And Israel is going to have to deal with them. The United States is going to have to deal with them. And truthfully, the international community is still going to have to deal with them. And with Gideon's Chariot, option B or 2.0, however you want to say it, the assault on Gaza City imminent, we are bound to see an increase in attacks from the Houthis and possibility of Iran opening up on Israel. It's just the truth. Oh, my goodness. So at least Israel is getting ahead of it conducting these attacks. Now, what I kind of like about this video is it is clearly, like a small diameter bomb maybe that ended up striking this freaking fuel tank. And it's the fuel that's on fire itself that's going. You didn't see like a huge detonation or anything like that. And I think Israel actually likely pre-planned this using a much smaller munition because that amount of fuel plus a big bomb. And I want you to look at how close that position is to all the civilian population in the surrounding area. If they'd have hit that sucker with a very large diameter bomb, you'd have had flaming fuel thrown all over that freaking city, and it would have been burning it down to the ground. Matt, did you see the reports of the 4 journalists killed in Khan Yunis Hospital? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I saw the reports of that journalist, and I have video footage that comes out of there, and I've already analyzed the video footage, and I have that coming up for you guys here in just a little bit. So the whole purpose of this, is it more, how do I want to say, like before we get to it, is it Hamas propaganda, or is it an actual event that occurred? I dug into it with people that are claiming to be familiar with the matter, and we've got all that coming out for you guys here in just a little bit. The Houthis down inside Yemen, yeah, they were pretty pissed off about these strikes that ended up taking place. I don't even need to listen to this guy ramble on for a minute. The brutal, unjust, savage, and shameful Israeli targeting of civilian oil facilities that serve the people and the citizens. Here we go. Come from the Israeli belief that such strikes will harm our livelihood and economic conditions, and from their support of the missile forces and the armed forces. Whatever happens, whatever they strike, whatever they target, instead, we will share with the Palestinian people their suffering, their hardship, their losses, and the harm inflicted upon them. We are not more precious than the Palestinian people. Our blood, our women, our facilities, our infrastructure are not more valuable than what is happening inside Palestine. Again, when I tell you that this is a very real problem that Israel is likely going to have to deal with in the future, especially after they launch Gideon's Chariot 2, Houthis are likely building up, ballistic missiles. We've only seen like one or two here and there that have been fired over the last like 60 plus days, right? Ever since the attack on Iran, they have slowed down quite a bit. But that's not to say that they don't have drone capabilities and that they don't have more ballistic missile capabilities that they're going to be launching against Israel in the future. So are we going to see an uptick in airstrikes going on over inside of Yemen? The answer is yes, I do believe that to be true. Over inside southern Syria this weekend, IDF also launched a major operation. We're going to take a look at a couple of what they actually ended up doing. This, again, greatly underreported. Why? Is a very good question why things like this are going underreported. Everybody is focusing on Gaza. Not a lot of people are talking about Iran. Not a lot of people are talking about the Houthis. But I think this is also important to bring up. IDF did feel it was so important to conduct this press release, and I'll show you some videos that are within it, of them going into southern Syria, taking some EPWs, it would seem, and then also raiding weapon supplies. Sean Hughes, good morning from the free state of Florida. Dude, Florida, I've learned so much about. You guys got some amazing stuff going on down there inside Florida. So yeah, let's take a look at this. Troops from the 474th Brigade completed several nighttime raids in the region. Now, over the last, how do I want to say this, several days, okay, we have actually heard that the HTS is basically looking at launching a new assault on the Druze. We've got I watched a video of a Druze woman this morning that was coming out and basically set up a checkpoint, and she's running a checkpoint going into Druze controlled territory. Now, if HTS and those other terror sympathizers are actually looking at going down there and conducting more raids, all right, and going after these guys, they are going to be met with this. Israel is making a stance on this, and it's going rather quiet inside of the international community. And let's not forget that this month in September, we still have Jolani scheduled to come over and speak at the UN General Assembly inside of New York. Now, this is the same man that is responsible for killing U.S. service members. He was a member of Al-Qaeda. He was friends with al-Baghdadi. And his troops, 1,000% beyond the shadow of a doubt, were down there murdering the Druze in Suwaida. Correct, TBN. Correct. So how is it that that man is supposed to be coming down here and messing with us some more? Why is he being even allowed to step foot inside of the United States? Well, U.S. actually ended up signing a minerals deal. I didn't believe it myself, but we're actually looking at a minerals deal and signing a minerals deal with Syria in order to get some more of that. And when you look at the different tariffs and stuff like that the Trump administration has been putting on other countries, what often ends up coming out of the other side of that is minerals deals. Because the United States, for whatever reason, is looking at securing precious metals and freaking all sorts of crap in the mining field. And so we're going after that, and we're doing that. And we did that with Syria. But also, the Trump administration, I think in their own words, wants to believe that he's doing the right thing. All right, let's take a look at some of the stuff they found that was on their way to go murder some Druze. Take a look here. And again, presumably was going to be used to go murder the Druze, right? Look at all of these weapons and equipment that were being stocked up that Israel went over and interdicted before going after them. The amount of lives that got saved by this raid, immeasurable, honestly, absolutely immeasurable, the amount of lives that got saved. And it's unreal to me when you look at some of these munitions. I mean, these are brand new in the frickin' box. That is Chinese-made equipment right there, right? And you've got a lot of brand new shiznit, and you wonder where it's coming from, right? You wonder who's sending this stuff. You've got Russian-made equipment. I'm trying to, is that night vision inside of this box? It's hard to make out what some of this crap is, but you've got brand new stuff, fresh out of the box that's being given to them from somewhere. Yep, there you go. I wonder who is supplying these munitions. I wonder who's securing it. I wonder who's shipping it down there to them. Danny Golan, no one had intel on Yemen when it started. Israel probably has some good target lists by now. Danny, that is a very accurate statement. The intelligence that Israel is going to have on Yemen is going to be pretty dang vast. And with those U.S. aircraft carriers that were operating down inside of the Red Sea for so long, again, the amount of intelligence that we ended up collecting during that time frame is huge. And the U.S. and Israel are sharing intelligence. And I have no doubt that the amount of intelligence that the U.S. gathered while we were down there has been passed off to Israel for strikes such as we just saw. I thoroughly believe that they're going to end up getting their poop pushed in here in the very near future, should they choose to keep up the crap that they're doing. I don't think it's going to turn out too good for the Houthis, but again, it's got to go down. All right, so what ended up happening? Yeah, obviously AK-47s, ammo, the rockets, different munitions. I'm seeing different sites, all sorts of stuff. Thought I even saw like some night vision that was mixed in there. I mean, it's a ton of stuff. And meanwhile, all right, as they're doing that, Israel is over inside of Gaza. Check this out. And they are stacking up and preparing tanks to go into Gaza City. Now, last week we got word that 60,000 reservists had been called up to duty and they're being activated. But in addition to these Israeli reservists being activated and being called up to duty, we've also got word last week that Israeli engineers were actually already operating on the outskirts of Gaza City in order to surround it. Now, when you take a look at the map and see kind of like where everything's at, Gaza City pretty much remains untouched. All right. Israel has been operating on some of the outskirts of it and has kind of closed in around it. And their goal is to basically shoot down it and lock that whole sucker down. And right now we're getting reports that are coming out of Gaza, not from Hamas, not from anybody else, but I'm able to see where we have Israeli tanks that are on the ground over there. And this within itself, I think, is kind of important. And I want to let Yar Pinto actually do the freaking reporting coming from TBN Israel on this one.
So it seems that Hamas wants to negotiate now. Oh, so shocking that you want to negotiate now that the tanks are on the outskirts of Gaza City, your last stronghold. Hamas in the past, guys, already proposed multiple negotiation deals, but bottom line, they understand that if they release all the hostages, they have no cards left. So they are buying time, they are stalling, because they see that the international community and the world is pressuring Israel the longer this war goes on. So Prime Minister Netanyahu entered Gaza to check out the situation for himself. The Israeli government is moving in two directions at the same time. One is moving forward the military operation to conquer Gaza City, and second, to push for a negotiation deal, an agreement to end this war and release all the hostages at once. That's the condition that Israel wants, all the hostages at the same time, not to leave a few of them in Hamas tunnels for multiple years to come. So guys, keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem, this city behind me, and let me know what you think is the best way for Israel to end this war.
John Wilson just asked me a crazy question. I saw it hit the chat with a very generous donation. And he said, did you hear about the two men impersonating police officers that tried to do a home invasion in Houston? The homeowners shot and killed them after they became suspicious of their authenticity and after the suspects fired through the door. No, I did not hear about that, and that is wildly disturbing. And now I need to look into that and do a full-blown analysis on it, because that's freaking disturbing. I know that there has been people that have been pretending to be police officers in the recent past, and try to get into people's homes that way. They'll knock on the door and stand to the side, tell them it's the cops, and then when the door opens and they bust in there. But that's something totally different. I'm definitely going to look into that, because that's freaking disturbing. Now, the IDF's chief ended up telling Benjamin Netanyahu that the hostage deal is ready to go and Netanyahu needs to take it. Of course, I'm speaking, in loose terms here, but he told him that it was ready to go. So is Netanyahu going to take it? Well, the question is, why would Netanyahu take it, right? Because it all depends on the details of what Hamas has agreed to. If Hamas agrees to lay down all of their weapons and disarm, Netanyahu will take it. If Hamas does not agree to lay down all of their weapons, he's likely not going to take it. Pagers for Terry. Yeah, dude. I mean, pagers for everybody in this case, man. We need another freaking pager gate. I don't see, honestly, this hostage deal going down as everybody's describing, right? And it, like I told you guys last week, what I ended up hearing was that this assault on Gaza City was kind of Netanyahu's way, and the Israeli way, of forcing Hamas to come to the table in order to release the hostages. But that comes with a caveat. It's not as simple as everybody likes to make it out to be. And that caveat is, if they are going to be, agreeing with Hamas, that they can't be pulling themselves back out of the Gaza Strip. And that has long been like Hamas's grounds for a freaking ceasefire in order to exchange hostages for the last year and a half or something. And then they switched it up over this last one, where they said that the next time that they agree to anything is only going to be for a like peace deal, basically, and for Israel to completely withdraw from the Gaza Strip. Now, those two things do not go hand in hand together. So I don't see this peace deal actually going through, at least if that's what Hamas proposed. Now, if Hamas agrees to lay down their weapons, then Israel is going to accept it. But then that opens up the new gate and the new set of issues. And it's not outside of Hamas's realm of possibilities to be lying about all of these things, that they are going to lay down their weapons, that they're going to tell their people to do so. But Hamas very well could easily lie. And that is the problem when it comes to dealing with Islamic jihadic terrorist organizations, that they have the ability to lie. They have the ability religiously to lie in order to advance their objectives, which in this case is their divine right to the friggin' entire territory of Israel. So it is possible for Hamas to say, you know what, we'll lay down our weapons, we'll give you these hostages back. They fill their bodies with frickin' explosives. They lie about laying down their weapons and everything else and end up just launching major ambushes. And this is all stuff that, you know, the Israeli government has to actually consider and deal with. Meanwhile, right, again, multiple reports of these Israeli tanks that are operating at and near the borders of Gaza. And I've got other videos as well. Well, I think I put one in the stack that's going to show these Israeli tanks that are right outside of the Gaza City, and some of them stating that they are actually probing into Gaza City, going in there as well. So all of this is happening at the same time those negotiations are taking place. And I'm telling you, the sleeping giants that we need to be watching out for are Yemen, which I don't even know if I'd describe them as giant, but Iran, all right? Because Iran has been long outspoken. And in the protests last week that they were having over inside of Iran, one of their chants that they were going off on was that they are not going to be dying for the Palestinian people. So if the Iranians that are currently over inside of Iran do not want to die for the Palestinian people, then that to me says that some of this information has slowly started making its way out, and that the people over inside of Iran think that there is a possibility the regime is going to attack Israel should all of this actually go down. Yeah, Hamas, in my opinion, is not going to release the hostages because we just clearly heard that you know, they're not going to basically have any cards left to play. This is an article that BBC put out yesterday. It says Israel pounds Gaza City in preparation for planned offensive. Now, I told you guys that we had an uptick in strikes in the Al Zaytun neighborhoods that were over there. This BBC article is claiming that 64 people have been killed and nearly 300 injured in attacks within the last 24 hours as this article went released. They even went so far as to quote 62,686, all right, people inside of Gaza have been killed, with another 157,000 or 158,000 roughly that have been wounded. Now, this number obviously comes from the Hamas-run Gaza Ministry of Health, but that doesn't mean that it's not accurate. What it actually means is that you have Hamas numbers, that you have PIJ numbers, that you have PIJ and Hamas collateral damage numbers that are included in there. You have all sorts of stuff that's included in there. When we ran these figures last week and actually brought it down, it took the actual amount of civilian casualties likely caused by Israel. And again, we can chop away at it even further when we start using common sense to right around 23,000 civilians. Right now, that number puts Israel right on par. Before I said that they were less, all right, that they were at like a 0.7, 0.5 to 0.7 civilian death ratio to enemy combatant. Okay, about a 0.5 to like a 0.7. Certainly seems like when I ran the numbers this last time on the latest ones released by the health ministry that they're inching towards a like 1-to-1 ratio. 1-to-1 ratio is one that we hear like quite often, all right, coming out from like spokespeople from, you know, the Israeli Defense Force or anybody that's out there like defending them. And I'm just doing my best to give you my numbers and where I find them at. So what that suggests to me is that Israel either has a lot of people that are refusing to evacuate, or we have Hamas that is continuing to hide amongst these people, all right, continuing to hide amongst these people. And Israel is going to, again, continue on with these airstrikes. You know, they've been negotiating for the last 2 years with Hamas trying to make this work. And so I think Israel might be getting kind of like fed up with this crap, and they're going after Hamas where they need to go after them. obviously they are striking people. Obviously they are going after Hamas. Obviously they're doing that. And when you guys see this next video that I have coming up for you here in just a little bit, it's going to become abundantly clear for you that the IDF is almost over all of their crap. And when I say they're almost over all of their crap, you're going to see why here in just a sec. First, I got to show you this is a Merkava tank, allegedly, that got captured creeping in. Now, it does, to me, look like it's the outskirts of Gaza City, but we have those Merkava tanks now. And they have been spotted moving in on Gaza City. So are these probing operations? Likely. Are they prepping to see what's out there? Likely. Are they checking avenues and assault avenues and things of that nature? Likely. All right. But they also have drones and all sorts of other stuff that's capable of it. So it would be my assumption. And by the way, you know, I want you to ask yourself, who is it that's hiding in this rubble taking that video of a freaking Merkava tank, right? Do we think that this is the civilian population that's living inside of that building that's waiting for this to happen? No, probably not. More than likely, no. But the IDF is probing into Gaza in order to check it out. Now, this is a strike that is causing everybody so much concern. This is immediately following. Let me grab the actual video itself and play. You guys asked about the hospital strike over in Khan Yunis, allegedly outside of the Nasser hospital. Let me get that up on the screen.
لا حصل الآن خليك يا الله راح الدفاع المدني قتلوا الناس.
So this is the video, all right? What you guys are seeing here, this is the video that people are now screaming was an Israeli airstrike on this hospital. What I did was I took this video and I matched it up to an actual airstrike. And I'm going to allow this sucker to play. So that was the original strike video. They zoom out and you see smoke and things like that. There's another video that just got sent to me of what appears to be that staircase with a lot of bodies that are strewn on it. And certainly it looks like a detonation did occur at this location. And then I'm going to tell you what I heard afterwards. So first, I'm going to tell you, well, you know what? I'm going to let this video play. So the first one, again, you're going to end up seeing the actual strike that took place on the hospital. And then you're going to see an actual airstrike. And what's missing from this video, all right, what's missing from this video is the sound of the bomb burning in to that site. You don't hear it. Therefore, it's not a bomb. Anybody that's been in like danger close airstrikes or been around these suckers or even watched enough of these videos coming out of Gaza, you can hear those bombs coming in. We do not hear that bomb. And there's an explanation for it. First, I'm going to play this video for you.
لا حصل الآن خليك يا الله راح الدفاع المدني قتلوا الناس. حد يوقفهم من هنا. حد يوقفهم من هنا. لا حصل الآن خليك يا الله راح الدفاع المدني قتلوا الناس.
I think it is pretty dang clear, at least in my opinion, you know, when we look at this video and when we talk about this video, that it was not an airstrike that took place. As a matter of fact, even the damage afterwards suggests that it's not an airstrike that took place. I'll tell you, you know what? First, let me go to the statement by the IDF, because the IDF did release a statement on this. Here we go. Let me just get this up on the screen. They didn't release it on their English channel, but they ended up releasing it over on their Hebrew one over on X. All right. It says, earlier today, IDF forces attacked in the area of the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. The chief of the general staff instructed to conduct an initial inquiry as soon as possible. The IDF regrets any harm to non-combatants and in no way intentionally targets attacks towards journalists as such, and acts as much as possible to minimize harm to them while maintaining the security of our forces. So what they're saying is that they did conduct an attack in the area of the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. They didn't say that they attacked the hospital. They said that they had an attack they conducted in that area. So I'm going to throw that out there. So this is not them claiming responsibility for the attack. The chief of the general staff instructed them to conduct an inquiry, meaning they got to figure out and they got to talk to the people on the ground who, again, are also in combat to figure out whether or not this was their responsibility, whether or not they did this. The guy that was walking through the steps on an ID, LOL. Yeah. I mean, so that was my initial response to this, right? First time I saw this video and the first time I watched it, you know, my initial thought was exactly that, right? When you watch this video play, that was my initial thought, was an IED. Or some type of UXO, okay? And if you watch right down here at the bottom of the screen, it almost looks like this is the point of impact, all right? Or the point of detonation. So I want you to watch down here at the base of these steps. That's certainly what it would seem like, is that is a point of detonation. So watch it again. And I'm going to put it in, let's put it in, I don't know, half speed. And just mute it for you guys so that you can watch, all right? You'll see here in just a sec. You see how the ground kind of shook a little bit and then followed by like the detonation that you see on the camera. It's really obvious when you put it there. You guys see that? How the ground went up first? Now let's put that in quarter speed. Watch. This whole ground shifts up, followed by that. You guys see that? That ground shifts up, and then you see that detonation. Did everybody see that? I hope everybody saw that. Okay, so what does that mean? Anybody? Anybody in the chat? I want you guys to think about what this could possibly mean. And there's a reason why the story that I'm about to tell you I actually think is credible. The shockwave came before the blast. Yep, looks a little farther left. Yep. A person went down the steps prior to the explosion. Nope, that's not it. Because again, that most certainly appears like the point of detonation right in there. You guys see how it skips up and then it goes down. Most certainly looks like the point of detonation. One more time, and then I'm going to tell you guys what I heard. Wait for it. Boom. Okay. So here's what I heard. And I could be wrong on that point of detonation, right? Somebody says secondary. No. Here's what I heard. I heard that there was CCTV cameras that were on that building in particular, which is why it was targeted in the first place, which is why those people are there. So CCTV cameras on that building that Hamas was accessing and using in order to target IDF troops. Okay. So CCTV cameras at the building Hamas was accessing and or using to target IDF troops. Danny Golan says the tank probably been doing mine clearing, looks like a booby trap. What the word actually is that, and again, this is unconfirmed before I state it, this is unconfirmed, is that a tank was instructed to fire on the building to get rid of those CCTV cameras. Now, following the initial strike, which is what you see, where am I at? 5 seconds in the video. So following the initial shell going after those camera systems, you had these people show up and start working on it. But the camera systems allegedly were still operable and they were still being used. It was then that they were ordered to fire a second shell at the building. And that second shell is what you are currently seeing. And that second shell was again targeted at the security cameras. And so when we go back and we take a look now, we're at 3 seconds, 3.5-ish, and we let it play. Does this appear to be like a delayed detonation? And the more that I watch this, it kind of looks like that explosion is actually taking place up and to the left, not underneath here, as I previously stated. You can see how it kind of originates out of the upper left of this. Building shakes. And then you see everything kind of blast in from that side. So that is the statement that I'm hearing. That is the explanation that I'm hearing, is that a tank operating the area was instructed to take out CCTV cameras, and that those CCTV cameras were originally targeted. Then everybody shows up, CCTV cameras are still operating, and they get instructed to go after them again. It could be a delayed, and Danny, you're in here, you can let me know whether or not this is true. It could be a delayed detonation on that freaking tank round. And that initial shake of the building that you end up seeing could very well be that tank round striking a different portion of the building, causing it to freaking shake in that manner, followed by the explosion. I know for a fact it's not an airstrike. That's crystal clear. This was not an airstrike. But what it certainly appears to be, based on the information that I had received, plus this, it seems pretty viable. It seems pretty viable that these people had showed up to do that. Now, we're going to talk about who some of these aid workers were and these rescue workers were when that ended up occurring. Because again, they are not what they appear to be. Ryan Fitzsimmons says, did the tank squat according to Tony? No, I don't think the tank ended up squatting when it went over to do that. Not even remotely close. I think, did we hear a tank squat? I'm going to let Emily Schrader give an explanation here. And this is, again, a gentleman that was present on that building.
Journalists after the assassination of Anas al-Sharif, an Al Jazeera journalist and Hamas terrorists. Now, for many months, Israel has faced criticism around the world, killing 200 journalists, a claim that's been repeated ad nauseum by journalists and pundits around the world. But what is a journalist? Time after time, we see that Hamas uses journalists as cover for their terrorist activities. And Al Jazeera, well, they're one of the worst perpetrators of this scheme. Take Anas al-Sharif, for example, who everyone is so upset about this week. He was an Al Jazeera journalist who also happened to lead a Hamas terror cell responsible for Hamas-guided rockets. He was also listed in the directory of Hamas operatives active in Jabalia. This week, the BBC also confirmed Anas worked for the Hamas media team in the past. But Anas wasn't alone. On October 7th, at least 6 different photojournalists actively took part in the massacres and were at the scene of the kidnappings and rapes that took place. One of them was Mohammed Salama, a reporter for Al-Aqsa TV, literally a Hamas network that's being considered a journalist. Okay, this guy took part in the October 7th massacres, and still they're calling him a journalist. And then there's Hassan Asliah, who freelanced for AP and CNN. Hassan was a big fan of Yahya Sinwar, and he participated in the October 7th attack, striking a pose with no press vest, of course, in front of a burning IDF tank. He was later confirmed to be an operative in Hamas's Khan Yunis brigade. But there's more. Ismail al-Ghul was a Hamas military wing operative and Nukhba terrorist, and of course, a journalist for Al Jazeera. Hossam Shabat, Al Jazeera journalist who also served in the Beit Hanun battalion of Hamas. Hamza al-Dawdu, another Al Jazeera journalist who the IDF exposed as an Islamic Jihad operative. Journalists in war zones should be protected, but using the media as cover for terrorism is a cynical war crime. To then turn around and falsely claim that Israel is targeting journalists when they're targeting terror operatives is completely irresponsible. Sadly, the head of the Foreign Press Association doesn't seem to care about the abuse of journalists by Hamas. Instead of condemning Al Jazeera's ongoing collusion with terror organizations, he said this.
Frankly, I don't care whether al-Sharif was in Hamas or not. We don't kill journalists for being Republicans or Democrats or, in Britain, Labour Party.
Truly disgusting. And
now, that's important, and this is the entire reason in which I ended up putting this in there, because the Free Press Association actually came out today, and they went off on the strike over at that hospital, claiming that more journalists ended up getting killed and condemning it. Currently, the Gaza Ministry of Health is saying that over 15 people were killed in this attack. Now, knowing that and knowing the different bright orange vests and things like that that Hamas got caught wearing last week, I also want to go back and look at this video again. Do we see any signs of things like that taking place? Sure. We see this guy right here wearing his bright orange vest, right? And all of these other people that are up there. Now, is it possible that all of these people work for Hamas? Probably not. Did some of them? Very likely. Did they start filming this for a reason? Yeah, sure. Propaganda, they ended up having that. The strike had already taken place, and I highly doubt that they even suspected that this next shell would end up making its way in there, if that is what actually happened. I still think that it is possible that an IED could have gone off somewhere inside of that building or some other munition following the initial strike. But what I can tell you, after watching the aftermath of this thing, because I unfortunately cannot put that up on the screen here, I would have to basically blur out the entire picture. But this whole staircase appears to be perfectly intact. All right. So this entire staircase they're standing on following the strike is perfectly intact. They did not directly target these people. If it was a tank that fired at the building, I can personally assure you that that tank did not directly target these people. The damage on the staircase has not changed from where it's currently at. It hasn't. Overpressure from the blast that occurred likely ended up killing some people or wounding some people. But a direct blast on the staircase, you would have had people pink misted all over. And that's not what we see in the aftermath video, not even remotely close. As a matter of fact, in the aftermath video, I'm going to end up putting it up on my X because I'm going to analyze it, to be perfectly honest with you. But some of the blood spatter stains and things like that are on there do not also line up with where it's at. And so I do believe that this type of a strike did occur. I do believe, as we watch this, it is highly likely, highly likely, all right, that it was a tank shell based on my sources, that it was a tank shell plus the video that ended up like hitting that building. However, I do not believe the 15 plus number based on the video of the aftermath that I had just seen. I'm actually tempted to take it and share it down in the chat and give you guys a link to it. You know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to go in here right now and I'm going to give you guys a link to this because I want you guys to be able to go over and take a look at it. If you guys want, go ahead and open it up and you feel free to go over and take a look at it. Let me see who sent me that aftermath video. Here it is. So I'm going to send you a link to this aftermath video. And you guys, again, I can't put it up on the screen over here on YouTube, but I can give you that link. So there's that link right there. I'm going to pin it up at the top of the chat so that if you guys want, you can go over and access it. Just be aware, all right, that when you open it up, it might be graphic in nature, allegedly, all right? And I'm using the term allegedly because when you open up that video, I want you to pay attention, like pay very close attention to the side of the stairwell. And by the way, those who open the link are going to see that it wasn't a direct strike from an aircraft for dang sure. And it sure wasn't a direct strike from a tank. Okay. Otherwise those bodies would be ripped to complete and total shreds. And that's not the case. But I want you to pay attention to the blood that is randomly placed. It appears to be placed on the side of that staircase. It certainly appears as if it is not a natural pattern of how it went down. You'll see why when you click and you look at the link, but I'll do a whole post and section on it and I'll throw it in the Discord and I'll make sure I throw it up over on our Telegram channel as well. So you guys can see that, but it certainly doesn't seem like it's 15 people were killed. John Wilson says, just wanted to give a shout out to the U.S. Coast Guard for putting in work on the illegal drug smuggling coming into this country. In August alone, they have seized over 13,000 pounds of cocaine. Jeez. And have arrested 11 smugglers. Bro, that's a lot of coke. That is a lot of coke, man. Holy crap. I know the Coast Guard's always getting after it. And like they really, I mean, number one, we give them crap all of the time because they fall underneath DHS and we call it, make fun of them for not being members of the armed forces. But they really do a lot of things when it comes to Homeland Security. Daniel Lyons. It's more our style to use something like a small ordnance from a Hermes in a situation like that rather than a tank. Yeah, I would agree. But it also depends if they have troops that are actively maneuvering on the ground in that area. So if you have troops that are actively maneuvering on the ground in the vicinity of there that are being targeted and that those CCTV cameras are suspected or known to be getting used by Hamas, then they are going to actively target and take those out because of the imminent threat that it poses. Danny Goland, I think it was 50 cal with blue tip rounds. I don't know about that. I mean, really? I don't know, man. I mean, that was a single freaking hit, and I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one, Danny. But I'll tell you that even if it was a tank and we look and we say, okay, now knowing all that information that I just presented to you guys, is it legal underneath international law for them to be able to do something like that? That would depend on the situation at the ground and what threat those cameras posed to the troops that are actually operating in the region, right? If it posed a greater threat to the troops that are operating over there, and that it posed a great risk to them, and that they could have lost troops because of that, then Israel, by international law, needs to pretty much balance out and figure it out. Whether or not any civilian casualties that could have resulted out of that would be less than, or yeah, I mean, proportionality, like the law of proportionality is where it ends up coming in, right? So is what they did proportional to the threat that those troops on the ground faced? And that would be an entire investigation that goes into it. But that is a ground force commander decision in order to take those things out. And so now it's talking to the ground force commander and figuring out what situation they were in, if this thing did actually happen the way in which I described and why they did it. It's also possible, right, that they used a precision strike from another aircraft, but why bother doing that? Because sometimes the aircraft is going to deny doing that in the first place. And so use your organic weapon systems that you have in order to take that sucker out. To me, somebody says can't be a tank, where's the impact area, not a rocket? Well, like I said, when you click on that video, Climb to Glory, when you click on that video with that link that's pinned up there at the top, and like I told you guys, be careful with it because it's not pretty. You can see that that staircase is completely and totally intact and that it likely struck a different area. I also told you that I believe that video likely has a bunch of propaganda that's filled within it as well. I do not believe that number of killed is 15 based on that video within itself. John Wilson's just in the house being extremely generous today, came in gifting out 50 Speak the Truth memberships. Holy freaking cow, man. John, thank you very much, sir. That video is likely propaganda. Like I said, take a look. If you guys click on the link, take a look at the blood splatter on the side. It's not natural. That's not how blood normally spills out of body. And when it does run down, you're going to get the bulk of it at the top versus at the bottom. So describe it for you people that are at home listening that just don't want to click on the video. What you end up having is small amounts of what appears to be blood splatter, right? That's on the wall where it drips down. And then you just have large, what look like painted areas of blood on the lower level. And none of the bodies that are laying around there have nearly any amount of blood like that on there. Yeah, the blood's very, very wrong, according to Doc Hook. Thank you. Okay, so could it be that they added blood in order to dramatize the scene for people at home? Sure. They could have added stuff to dramatize it, so maybe some of that is legit, right? But maybe some of it's not. And some of the bodies that are laying there certainly look like people that just got covered with a bunch of dust and told to lay still. But I've also seen dead people look like that. So I will have to find the full unedited clip of that, take that, and actually do my best to analyze that sucker, because that is just a tiny, like a 10-second clip that I shared with you guys. We'll have to go through it step by step. And again, I'll take that and I'll post it. So if you guys aren't following me over on Twitter and you want like a full breakdown of that, it's down there in the bottom corner of the screen. John Wilson says, all thanks is owed to you for bringing us the truth. My honor to donate to such a great community. Thank you, John. I really appreciate that. I really, really do. And helping to build the community by gifting out the Speak the Truth memberships as well. That situation within itself, to me, is one of those things that you are going to have to get the honest to God's ground truth of what's actually happening. Now, Open Source Intel ended up sharing a letter a little bit earlier, like literally, I think an hour or two before I came live, from a Palestinian. And what this letter actually says is, everyone is shocked that the occupation is criminal in bombing hospitals. Well, have any of you asked yourselves why the Qassam leadership has turned the Nasser hospital into a military base in the first place? The International Security Department instead of the Health Department, and the Hind al-Dagma Institute has been taken over by Abu Dabasa and a gang of Somme mercenaries. And rooms in the Yassin department have also been converted into operating rooms. And even the building behind the Nasser morgue is controlled by the same mercenaries. The hospital, which was supposed to be a refugee for the wounded and sick, was turned into a hideout and a barrier, and they came to trade in people's blood and are surprised by. Again, it's a translation from Arabic, so it's going to be a little bit off. Let's see here. Dylan Dunker says, looks like it was poured out of a container and looks like more people up there in the second video than in the first. Correct. That's the other thing. There's way too many bodies up there on that staircase that were actually in the original video. Way too many. So where'd those people come from? Like, you just suspect that they got blasted down and rolled down the stairs? That's not how that happened. That body that's hanging over the edge, that within itself, you know, would suggest it defies the laws of physics when you really think about it, unless the guy was leaning over the ledge at the time that blast took place and he just fell slump in that position. If you really think about it, he's going to take, that body would take the path of like least resistance, like motion, right? Like he would be rolling down those stairs. And so you ask, how is it that he was able to land like that on that? Because dead weight is exactly that. It's dead weight. So that guy with himself shouldn't be positioned like that, not even remotely close to be positioned like that. And yet he was. Danny Lyons, if there was SF troops around the hospital in camera range, I can't think of a rational other than possibility of live hostages in the area. Yeah. And it is possible that's what they're doing. And it is possible that there is live hostages in the area of that hospital or within the hospital itself. Because we've seen on October 7th, we've seen those hostages get taken into that hospital. Long story short, we're going to have to wait for some more information on that situation in order to come out, in order to make an actual assessment of what the hell took place. But again, we see mainstream media automatically come out and blaming the Israelis for just randomly bombing a place. All right. When the video evidence that so far has been released on the Palestinian side most definitely shows at least a staged scene, in my opinion. Abolitionist, it looks to me like two people on the staircase simultaneously held up their hands in response to a main tank gun firing just before the impact. Really? Really? I didn't see that. Let me go back. What did I do with that video? Let me open that up. I'm not sure I saw those hands rising up. I don't remember seeing that, but I'm going to go take a look. C-88 looks staged for max shock value, and the whole scene doesn't look right. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so where are these hands that we see? This guy right here. So the thing is earlier on in this video, you can actually see them communicating and talking with people below. And you see him like waving his hands like, come on, as it comes up before that impact. And so it looks like they're like they are coordinating some type of rescue effort or something, you know, for all of this. Everybody is doing that on the staircase. But even right here, the most amount of people that we can see on this staircase, all right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That appears to be rubble. So 6 people on that staircase. That's it. And they're claiming that 15 plus had been killed on this. And when you look at the staircase, there's way more than 6 bodies that are on there. And I also want you to note the clothing and stuff that these people are wearing and see if you can even spot the same clothing on that staircase, right? See if you can even spot the same clothing. Again, this report came out 4 or 5 hours ago. Like some of the first initial reports of this were like 4 or 5 hours ago of it happening. And just now we end up getting that video released of the aftermath here just a little bit ago. It wasn't like it was an immediate video of people rushing up the stairs. It was most certainly, you know, an aftermath thing. I want to shift your guys' focus from that over to Ukraine real quick before we end up, you know, kind of like ending this whole thing, because that is another big problem that's occurring, is whether or not Russia is going to come to the table, whether or not Putin is going to come to the table with this whole Ukraine deal. And there was a great interview that actually got done over this weekend with Lavrov, and Lavrov would be the foreign minister to Russia, Sergei Lavrov, and specifically got asked about whether or not they're going to be coming to the table.
So
okay,
yes,
Mr. Foreign Minister, let's keep
he is ready
moving.
to meet.
Let's keep moving.
But no, we cannot meet just for him to have a picture and to say that now I am legitimate. Legitimacy is another matter, because irrespective of when this meeting might take place, and it must be very well prepared, the issue of who is going to sign the deal on Ukrainian side is a very serious issue.
So you're saying you don't see President Zelensky as the legitimate leader of Ukraine? President Putin doesn't recognize him as the legitimate leader of Ukraine?
No, we recognize him as de facto head of the regime. And in this capacity, we are ready to meet with him. But when it comes to signing legal documents, now you You want to have the entire picture, is just part of it, which suits you. When we come to a stage when you have to sign documents, we would need a very clear understanding by everybody that the person who is signing is legitimate. And according to the Ukrainian constitution, Mr. Zelensky is not at the moment.
So, Lavrov says, sure, they can talk to him, but we can't sign anything because Zelensky doesn't have the authority to sign anything. Now, I want you to think about that for a second, because over inside of Ukraine, the war is still raging on. There hasn't been an official meeting actually set or taking place. And yet here you have Lavrov that's trying to state that Zelensky doesn't have the authority to do such things. And this is something we've talked about, that once they get it, then he's got to go to the parliament and he's got to get approval for all of that crap to take place. And they absolutely can make that happen. This whole interview, in my opinion, has been like a freaking dump. And this lady did a very good job. Where's she at? I know she appears here. This lady did a very good job of calling Lavrov on his BS. And this is what like we would kind of expect to see, all right, from mainstream media outlets. They're interviewing guys such as freaking Lavrov, calling them on their BS. She asked him about like whether or not it was, you know, Russia actually invaded Ukraine, if he would even admit to that. And the guy's like, Russia has conducted a special military operation and blah, 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 blah. She's like, why won't you use the term freaking invade? Like, why wouldn't you do such a thing? And something actually also really interesting came out from Lavrov during this interview as well. And it goes against everything that Putin has stated about denazification of Ukraine and so on and so forth. And what Lavrov actually came out and stated during this interview was that the reason they launched that special military operation was to protect the separatists that were being murdered by Ukraine. This, of course, following 2014. When the separatists actually emerged, and then instead of Russia going in to protect the separatists, they decided that they were going to ransack Crimea and then send in Spetsnaz and send in regular army people, shoot down freaking commercial airliners, all of that crap. And only now did they feel, or 2 years ago, if you will, 3 years ago, did they feel it was viable for them to actually invade Ukraine. And so Lavrov, in my opinion, he did come out with some good information, which was they went in order to protect those people. Great. You know, I think even that within itself, if he would have brought that up, if Russia would have came flat out with that, with the international community that, hey, listen, we want to protect the people of Eastern Ukraine, I actually think that they would have had a lot more of the world on their side. But if that was the case, then why would Russia feel the need to lie about their special military operation? There's no need for them to lie about that if that was the case, if they actually felt that way and that's what was happening. Further, they wouldn't have felt the need to go in and try to sack Kiev, and they wouldn't have done the land grab in between the Donbass region and Crimea. That whole land bridge that they ended up going and securing, they wouldn't have needed to do it. I've got legitimate reasons for why they could have went in so deep, but it involves the land grab. Russia shares a border with Eastern Ukraine. If they really wanted to help out, you know, the separatists in Eastern Ukraine, they could have just sent the military into Eastern Ukraine, established their battle lines, taken what they conceived as, you know, the territory for them, and tried to soak them up into Russia. And the international community, honestly, likely wouldn't have cared. But because of the way that they chose to conduct this war, because of the way that they invaded Ukraine, because that they continue to fight it to this day in a manner which is quite literally like actual crimes of war, right? Bombing that U.S. factory last week, that wasn't a legitimate military target. Bombing schools, not a legitimate military target. Using these advanced munitions to just simply take out apartment buildings. Sending Shahed drones into apartments in Kiev. Striking places all the way over in Lviv with ballistic and cruise missiles. In drones. Also not. And let's not forget, if this was about the separatists in the east, why did they land those Russian Spetsnaz all the way in frickin' Western Ukraine outside of Lviv when this whole thing first took place? Everybody forgets that happened. There's no logical explanation for why Lavrov came out and chose to state that. With that being said, I stick to my regular assessment. I highly doubt Russia is going to come to the table in this. I highly doubt like Putin really cares to do any sort of freaking deal. I think he might be trying to save face a little bit with the Russian people because they are so freaking broke down. And if you guys are really interested in that conversation, over on Mario Nawfal's X channel on Wednesday, I'm going to be having a debate with Scott Ritter, who, as most of you guys know, is a very pro-Russian like sympathizer, in my opinion. He's also a convicted pedophile. True. Well, maybe not convicted pedophile, but convicted sex offender. He went after and targeted a 15-year-old girl online that ended up being, how do I want to state this? Ended up being a police officer, and that's how he ended up getting busted, and he ended up getting charged over inside Pennsylvania. If you guys are unfamiliar with who this gentleman is, let me go ahead and refresh your memory. He is always out there spitting Russian propaganda, and I get the distinct honor of going up against him on Wednesday.
I committed no crime, not a single. There is no victim. There is no victim. It's a cop who registered as an adult and then later said that he was a 15-year-old girl. There's no victim. There was no contact. There was nothing. This would have been thrown out of every court in the world except the one that I was in, because they had a hard-on for putting Scott Ritter, the former UN weapons inspector, in jail.
Nope, they had a hard-on for somebody that tried to lure a 15-year-old girl in and meet up with her. That's what they had a hard-on for. It's exactly what they had a hard-on for. And yet this gentleman, for some reason, remains in mainstream media sometimes. I mean, he's been kind of like pushed away and pushed to the side a little bit. No, it's not entrapment. It's actually legal. It's legal the exact same way police do prostitution stings, where they have police officers that go inside of hotels and lure men in, lure in the Johns into these different hotels, and then the cops end up coming out and busting them. This stuff takes place all of the time. And so for him to state that that's the only court in the world that would have stuck up in, wrong, right? Instead of stating, why were you online looking for a 15-year-old girl? Why were you online doing those things? That's a question that everybody needs to know. And then you also look a little bit deeper into this and you question the man's motives and say, why is it that this guy was freaking like, dude, it's beyond me. Also, before I end up jumping off of here, I got to give a special shout out to somebody. I got to give a shout out to Valhalla VFT. He was on the program not that long ago. And when we were talking about Aguilar and what was taking place, well, he ended up coming out with some really, really, really damning information against frickin' what's his name? John Shrek McPhee. The guy has been all over social media. He's been on the Sean Ryan podcast. He's been on all sorts of stuff, or the Sean Ryan show, excuse me. And he came out with a video that just goes off on Shrek. Shrek was demoted, kicked out of, forced into retirement following an alleged RAPE situation, and also kicked out of SF. He had his tab revoked. He had all sorts of stuff that ended up happening. If you guys are interested in something like that, you guys need to go check that out. I talked with Nate following that, and he's got a lot more information that he is yet to release, and he's doing that man a favor by not doing it. And I guess, you know what? Something else that's just really interesting that I think came out over the weekend that you just got to help laugh at. Have you guys seen the video of Mamdani going to like bench press and like if you guys haven't seen Mamdani trying to put up 135 pounds, it's freaking hilarious. I don't even know what I did with it. Let me see if I can find it. I know I did this. Hold on. Donnie, where are you at? Here we go. If you guys haven't seen this video, it's hilarious.
Up in the pole! Yeah! Get this shit! This is how you move up in the poles! Yeah! Good play, man. 500. Yeah! Let's go! Yeah! Let me get one more! Let me get three!
Dude, lifting his legs off the ground like a moron. I can't.
Let me get three!
Struggling to get two assisted up. Well, all of that has actually prompted, no kidding, a bunch of people on social media coming out and going against him. Here's Riley Gaines. Putting up 165. That's Riley Gaines knocking out 165. You got to give her a shout out. And then let's just give a shout out to my boy Carl Higbee over at Newsmax.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it, man, Danny.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to appreciate you and thank you for joining me for another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. It's been freaking real. Love it. See you guys tonight, 8 p.m. No, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Man, my freaking head this morning. Peace, love, happiness, and God bless, ladies and gentlemen. I'm out of here.